Good morning, friends. Welcome to the third lecture of Polity Static. So, in this chapter, we'll be dealing with six, seven more chapters of Lakshmikant. And like the earlier chapters, we will be focusing on only on issues which could be asked on prelims. We will be kind of scrapping or avoiding things which are more of mains relevant. We'll be only focusing on things which are on which a question could be asked in prelims. So we start with this chapter of emergency provision. And don't worry, I'll complete all the chapters of Lakshmikant. So if you think that I'm taking few chapters and I'm kind of skipping, don't worry. I'm taking as per my convenience, so I'll be taking all the chapters which are missed till now. I will be completing them all. So this chapter is emergency provision, and so before we go into this chapter, we'll first learn that there are three kind of emergencies in India. National emergency, president rule, and financial emergency. So all of the emergencies have different effects. They have different provisions, how they could be invoked, how they could be withdrawn, and these are the areas where the question is asked, or the question could be asked in the prelims exam. So we will be focusing in detail what are the provisions, what are the effects, how emergency could be implemented, how they could be scrapped, right? So we'll first start with national emergency, which is Article 352. So when we talk of national emergency, we'll deal all the emergency into three parts. First is when can it be imposed? Second is the features, and third is the effects of the emergency. So first is when it can be imposed. So it can be imposed on three conditions: war, external aggression, or armed rebellion. Now this word armed rebellion, earlier the name was internal disturbance. And on the basis of internal disturbance, Indira Gandhi imposed emergency in 1975. But after she lost and the Janata Party came to power, they ensured that this term internal disturbance, which is a vague term, anything could be called. I mean, in 2011, when this Anna movement was going on, it had that could also be called an internal disturbance. So this term was vague, and this vague term could be misused by the government to silence even the democratic protest in a democracy. Therefore, this word was replaced by armed rebellion, which means that a government cannot impose emergency if the protest is peaceful, if the protest is democratic, right? Only when there is armed rebellion, only in that condition you can impose emergency. So the first two areas, the war and external aggression, they are part of external factors, right? Or could be called external emergency. And second, this armed revolution could come under internal emergency. Right? Second is the features. So it can only be proclaimed on the written advice of the Cabinet of India, Union Cabinet of India. If the Prime Minister tells the President that impose emergency, then it is not valid. Unless the Union Cabinet advises the President on written note that we want you to impose the emergency, only then President can impose the emergency. This is again a new provision imposed by or introduced in the 44th Amendment. Earlier, the Prime Minister word or an oral word could be considered as a criteria where the president can impose emergency. But now after the 44th Amendment, it has made the provision of imposing emergency more tougher. Next is how it can be implemented, how it can be introduced. So once the cabinet advises the president that please introduce or please implement emergency, then it has to be passed by parliament within 1 month. Earlier it was only 2 months. Within 1 month, parliament has to pass by special majority, which means 2/3 of members present and voting, and full majority of the full majority of the house, which means more than 275 MPs or more than 125 MPs in Rajya Sabha, right? So only in that condition it has to be approved by parliament, ratified by the parliament within 1 month. If it's not ratified by the parliament within 1 month, then that emergency provision will lapse. Secondly, if Lok Sabha is dissolved, then Rajya Sabha has to approve it within 1 month, and Lok Sabha has to pass that within 30 days of its sitting, the first sitting. And second thing we will explain is how it could be invoked or how it could be withdrawn. How can emergency be withdrawn? So 1/10 of the members of Lok Sabha can give in writing to either speaker when the parliament is in session or to the president when the parliament is not in session, and within 14 days Lok Sabha has to be the session of Lok Sabha has to be had to be set, and in that Lok Sabha session, if the Lok Sabha passes the emergency provision or it says that by simple majority it can pass that we want to withdraw the emergency, then it means that emergency will be withdrawn. So understand that basic difference. When the emergency has to be introduced, then you require 2/3 majority. But when it has to be withdrawn, only simple majority will do. Right? Only simple majority will. If the parliament passes by simple majority, then it means that emergency is no more in implementation. Right? These are trivial things you cannot miss at any cost. Next is the effects. So in the effect part, we'll deal with effect on executive, or we'll see the effects on executive, legislature, and financial. So when national emergency is imposed, the state government is not suspended, but union government can give him or can issue orders to the state government on the state list, on subjects of the state list. So like subjects like law and order, subjects like health, they are all state subjects, right? And generally the center does not give them advice on that. But during the time of national emergency, even in those subjects which are domain where the executive power of state lies in, the center can give them advice on that. Second is legislative. So state legislature is not suspended. However, the parliament can make laws on subjects related to the state list, and they can be in effect till the emergency, like within 6 months after the emergency has been withdrawn, right? So parliament can make subjects on the state list, but the state assembly is not suspended. It's just that it becomes kind of a powerless. Third is financial. So when national emergency is in operation, the president can modify the constitutional distribution of the revenue between center and the state. So this means that president can either reduce or cancel the transfer of finance from center to states. Next is the life of Lok Sabha. So Lok Sabha and State Assembly can be, the normal term of this Assembly and the Parliament and the Lok Sabha can be extended by 1 year at a time and can be renewed as many times as it can be, right? So there is no provision if the government or if the Lok Sabha, if the Parliament thinks fit, then the term of Lok Sabha or the State Assembly could be extended as many times as they want, but it will be extended only by 1 year. After 1 year, the Parliament has to again pass that we are extending it for 1 year, 1 year more. So some of the people think that in 1977, because of the rule, Indira Gandhi had to go for elections. No, there was no rules. She felt that the kind of the wave is with her and she'll win the elections. Therefore, she kind of recommended that now there will be election. But there is nowhere it's written in Parliament that the term of assembly could be only extended by 1, 2 or 3 years. They can be extended unlimited times. Only thing is that they can only be extended for 1 year period in a go. After 1 year, they have to again pass the resolution. Right? Third is effect on fundamental right. So when emergency is imposed, we have two provisions dealing with the effect of national emergency on fundamental right. One is Article 358, second is Article 359. So Article 358 says that when emergency is imposed or when external emergency is imposed, which means the ground for emergency is war or external aggression, then automatically Article 19 is suspended. This is suspended automatically. Remember that term, only for external emergency, not for internal emergency. Right? And what does Article 359 says? Article 359 says, or it deals with suspension of other fundamental rights except Article 19. However, Article 20 and Article 21 cannot be suspended in any case. In any circumstances, these two articles cannot be suspended. So, how is Article 359 is different from 358? First is that Article 359 does not come into effect automatically. The President has to announce, it has to proclaim that we are imposing Article 359. But in this case, it is automatic. Once the external emergency is imposed, Article 19 is suspended. Right? Secondly, in this case, this is valid for both internal and external emergency, while this is only valid for external emergency. And secondly, under this Article 359, it does not exactly say that these articles are no more in existence, these fundamental rights, but it only says that the enforcement of these fundamental rights are suspended. So they could not be enforced for the short period of time till the emergency is there, right? Also, both Article 358 and 359 provides immunity from the challenge to only those laws which are related with emergency, right? And not other laws. Only those laws which are related to emergency, only for those laws immunity is there. That they cannot be gone into the court, or the official or the officer cannot be prosecuted for its deeds. Let's move to the second type of emergency, which is Article 356 or presidency. So when can it be imposed? So it can be imposed under two conditions. Firstly, when the president is satisfied that there exists a situation where the state administration cannot be carried in accordance with the provisions of the constitution, he can make the proclamation of failure of constitutional machinery in the state. So he can claim that the constitutional machinery is failed in state, therefore the present rule should be imposed. So first ground is Article 356. Second ground is Article 365, which is whenever the state fails to comply with or give effect to any directions from the center. So if center has power in center list, center has executive power of that list. Center has power to give direction to the state with respect to that. But if state does not comply that, then also a circumstance could be there that the state is not functioning according to the provisions of constitution, and therefore it is fit that the emergency could be imposed on that state. Second is features. Also, one more trivia is that the president can impose the emergency even without the report of the governor. So there will be two things. One, the governor recommends the president that there is failure of constitutional machinery in the state, therefore you should impose president rule here. Second is when president suo motu takes into consideration without the report of governor and can impose it suo motu. So it's not, if a question comes, that he can only impose emergency on the advice of the governor, on the report of governor, then you have to mark it wrong, because it can also impose emergency without the report of the governor also. Next is features. So how can it be, once the president imposes president rule, what is the role of parliament? So parliament has to pass that, ratify that by simple majority within 2 months. So kind of compare it with national emergency. In national emergency, it is by special majority, and within 1 month the parliament has to agree with the decision of the president. In case of 356, it's 2 months. Within 2 months they have to agree, and they have to agree just by simple majority. And once approved, the emergency is imposed for 6 months at a time. So after 6 months, the parliament has to again pass proclamation to extend the time period of emergency. But after 1 year, and the maximum is 3 years. Only for 3 years maximum president rule can be imposed in a state. But after 1 year, if the emergency has to be continued, then you need to there should be two conditions which need to be fulfilled. One is that national emergency should be in operation, and second, the Election Commission of India certifies that elections cannot be conducted at this moment in the state. Only in that condition, the emergency could be extended to more than 1 year. Third is effect. So, what effect does when the imposition of parliament or imposition of president rule have on the functioning of the state assembly? So, firstly, the executive powers of the state rest with the president when the emergency is imposed, and he can delegate the same to any authority, like the governor, like any other else. So, generally, when a president rule is effect, the executive government, the executive authority is exercised by governor, and who are its aiders and who can advise them? It's generally the bureaucrats who advise the governor in the running of the state. So when emergency is imposed, the governor acts as a chief minister also. Secondly, when the state assembly is suspended, then parliament can exercise its legislative powers. So parliament can pass a law on the behalf of that state legislature. Thirdly, the president can the president also passes the state budget. The parliament passes the state budget on the behalf of the assembly. And fourthly, the president can also promulgate ordinance when the parliament is not in session for that state. Also, one more thing, this year the question was also asked in this direction, that when there is an option that president can dissolve the state assembly or it can keep it in a suspended motion. So when it can be in suspended motion, then once the party kind of comes and says that now we have the number, and in that case the state assembly is again it comes into existence. But when it's dissolved, then there is no further hope. Then there will be only elections. Then only elections can be there. Then the assembly cannot be again kind of come into picture. So that is why a question was asked this year regarding that. So you have to be very careful that it is not always that state assembly is dissolved. Sometimes it is kept in the suspended animation. Next is how can or what are the effects on fundamental rights? So there is no effect on fundamental right. And lastly, how can it be repealed? So this is again trivial that president can revoke emergency on its own. It does not require parliamentary approval. Generally, the Union Cabinet advises the president that right now the pension has become fine, so you just revoke the president rule from that state, and president does it on its behalf without the approval of the parliament. So this is also different from the national emergency. Next we come last is the scope of judicial review. So if the president imposes emergency, or if it imposes a president rule, can court come into picture? So earlier the court was not in picture. Whenever the emergency or the president rule is to be imposed, the court was never active in that. And that is why we have seen so much imposition of articles or so much misuse of Article 356 till early 90s. But in SR Bomai case, the court has clearly said that the court has the power to look into the circumstances or the grounds on the basis of which the president has imposed the emergency. Which means that after looking at the circumstances or the reports, if the court finds that there is no solid ground on which the emergency has been imposed, or it is imposed with a malified intention, then the court could tell or court could order that or court could reinstate the dissolved assembly, it could restate the dismissed government, right? Next we deal with is the financial emergency, or Article 360. So financial emergency is imposed when the president is satisfied that the situation has arisen whereby the financial stability of India or any part of the territory is threatened. So in that case, financial emergency could be imposed. What are the features of that? Features of emergency, this kind of emergency. So it's similar to the president rule. The parliament has to pass it within 2 months by simple majority. So by simple majority, if the parliament passes within 2 months, no problem. But it is this difference, major difference between this kind of emergency and present rule on two grounds. Firstly, in case of financial emergency, there is no maximum time period on which it can be imposed. So it could be continued forever. If the government feels that the condition has not improved, there is no time. Like the present rule can only be imposed till maximum of 3 years. But in case of financial emergency, there is no such rule or law. And second, the parliament does not have to again and again approve of its continuation. So once it is approved by the parliament, it can continue till the president does not kind of revokes it. So there is no, the parliament does not have to agree it again and again like it used to do in the present rule, where after every 6 months it has to again agree with the continuation of the emergency. Second is effect. So in effect, the main thing is that the president can suspend distribution of financial resources. It can issue directions to follow the canons of the finance. It can direct the state government to reduce the salaries of their employees. It can direct the high courts to reduce the salary of the judges. It can direct the governors to reserve all the financial and the money bill for the president. These are the effects of the financial emergency. Now, effects on fundamental rights, no effect on fundamental right. And how could it be revoked? Same method as the present rule can be revoked. That is by just the president has to just say that it is been revoked. No parliamentary permission is required. So this ends our chapter fundamental or emergency provision. Next chapter we will deal with is the President of India. So before we go into the powers of President of India, we should discuss the most important thing, which is how is he elected. So as you know that the President of India is indirectly elected by an electoral college, and electoral college consists of MPs or elected MPs of Lok Sabha, elected MPs of Rajya Sabha, elected MLAs of state assemblies of state, and elected MLAs of union territories. Now the trivia here is that the nominated members of Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha does not vote for the president election because they are appointed by the president. Secondly, the MLCs or the members of legislative council in states also do not vote for the election of president. Rest, all of them vote for the election. They consist of the total electoral college. Now, how much vote or how is the vote calculated? How is it calculated that this state contains that much vote? So there is a formula for that, which is population of the state divided by the number of MLAs. This population of state is based on 1971 census, not on the basis of recent census. It's 1971 census. Number of MLAs into 1,000. So if the population of the state is 20 crores, and total number of MLAs are 400, then, and let's say it's UP, then how much is the vote in the state? Or how much is the average value of one vote? It would be somewhere around 50. 50 will be the value of the single vote. So the trivia is that maximum vote or the maximum value of one MLA vote is in Uttar Pradesh and the minimum is in Sikkim where it is 7. But this is, I didn't think they'll ask it, but it could be asked because now you is asking a lot of factual stuff. So based on that, there is this kind of electoral thing which happens. So suppose total number of votes or the total number of legal votes are 50,000, right? So the president would require half plus 1, so 25,000 plus 1 vote he will require to be elected as a president. And suppose there are 6-7 candidates and none of the candidates achieve the max this vote, this required vote, then the candidates which are at the bottom, they would be eliminated and their second preference vote would be given to the to the remaining candidates. So in this case, the method is through single transferable vote, which means you vote only one, but you give a preference that for me first preference is Pranab Mukherjee, second preference is Jaswant Singh, third preference is X, fourth preference is Y. So if nobody achieves majority, then these third and fourth they get eliminated, and their second preference vote, the second preference vote of these candidates, they are distributed in the remaining two candidates. So this is how and president is elected. Next is the term or the condition for its election, or the eligibility. And this is there in Lakshmikant. I don't think I need to discuss that. 35 years age, should be Indian citizen, should be qualified for election as a member of Lok Sabha, should not have hold any office of profit, and should not be a member of either Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. Next we come is the how could president be impeached? Because these two things are very important, and this is also very probable where a question could be asked in the exam. So president can be impeached on the ground of violation of constitution. That's Article 61. And how could it be? So 1/4 of the members of both Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha, they can initiate the impeachment charge against the president. And after they've initiated the impeachment charge, 14 days notice is given to the president. And within the 14 days, the president can say that why he should not be impeached. And then after that, after 14 days, this resolution should be passed in the parliament by 2/3 majority. Now the trivia here is, it is not the 2/3 present and voting majority. In case of judge, Supreme Court High Court judge, the method uses 2/3 present and voting. But in case of President of India, it's the most toughest kind of majority you need. It is a 2/3 majority of the House, which means if there are 550 members, 2/3 majority would be somewhere around 350, something around 350. So you need to, so this thing should be backed by at least 350 MPs of the House. 350 MPs of the House should support the impeachment motion or impeachment resolution. Only then the president will be removed. So it's very tough. It's almost impossible to impeach the president because you need 2/3 majority in both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. So generally, even the government this government have around 330 seats in Lok Sabha with all the alliance and partners, but in Rajya Sabha it's very difficult to achieve 2/3 majority. Next is the powers and the functions of the uh, president. So, executive power. Now, executive power of the president, Article 53 deals with the executive power of the president. And one thing is that all executive power of the union are vested in him. Like UPSC asked this question 3-4 years back when it said, and some people got it wrong. So all executive power of the union are vested in the President of India. But these powers are exercised by him directly or through subordinate office in accordance with the Constitution. So, what are the executive powers of the government? So, of the president. The president appoints the prime minister. He appoints the ministers on the advice of prime minister. He appoints the attorney general, CAG, chief election commissioner, chairman and member of UPSC, governor of state, chairman of finance commission. The president can also appoint a commission to investigate the powers or to investigate the condition of SC, STs, and OBCs. The president also receives the credentials of ambassador and high commissioner. The president is the commander in chief of Indian Armed Forces. These are the executive powers of the government. Next we deal with is the legislative powers. So here the president can summon or end a session of the parliament and can dissolve the Lok Sabha. He can address the parliament at the commencement of the first session after the election. He can also summon a joint sitting of both the houses of parliament. He can also appoint any member of the Rajya Sabha to preside over its proceedings when chairman and deputy chairman is not present. Same he can do with the Lok Sabha when the speaker is not and deputy speaker is not present. He can decide, he can appoint the third person to preside. He can also nominate 12 members for Rajya Sabha. He can nominate 2 members for Lok Sabha. A president's prior recommendation is required in money bills, in some other bills like the formation of states. Also, when a bill is passed by state legislature, is reserved by the governor, the president can give assent to his bill. President can also promulgate ordinance which have the same power as the bill. Next is emergency powers of president. Now again here also it is the president who ultimately imposes the emergency. Both national emergency and president rule, all of them are imposed by the president. Though it is not he imposes, it is imposed on the advice of the prime minister. Next is financial power. So a money bill could only be introduced when with the president's recommendation. The president also lays the annual financial statement of the union budget before the parliament. The president can also make advances out of the contingency fund of India for unforeseen expenses. President also constitutes finance commission after every 5 years. Diplomatic power. So when we talk diplomatic power, we see that international treaties and agreements are signed on the behalf of the president. So all the treaties, if PM Modi goes there anywhere and signs a treaty, it's signed on the behalf of the President of India, but ultimately it has to be approved by the Parliament. The President also represents India in international forums and send and receive diplomats like ambassadors and high commissioners. Next is military power. So in military power also the President is the supreme commander of Indian Armed Forces. The President can declare war and conclude peace. The President appoints the Chief of Army, Navy and Air Force. Next is the judicial powers. So the President appoints the CGI. One more thing that it is the CGI which does the oath thing for the President. I mean, it is the CGI which presents the oath to the President of India. So the President also dismisses the judges. The President has the right to grant pardon. The President enjoys judicial immunity when he is in office. No criminal proceeding can be initiated against the president during the term in office. The president is also not answerable to anyone for his duties. Next and very important thing we discuss is the veto power of president. This is something which is most important part of this chapter because the question has been asked earlier and could be asked again on the veto powers of the president. So in India, the president has three kinds of veto powers. One is absolute veto, another is suspensive veto, and third is pocket veto. So when a bill is passed from the parliament and it comes to the president has three options. First is he can give his assent to the bill, right? If I'm talking about the ordinary bill, he can give his assent to the bill. Second is he can withhold the assent to the bill, right? And third is he can return the bill for the reconsideration. These are the three options the President of India have. Now let's deal with these three kinds of vetoes: absolute, suspensive, and pocket vetoes. So absolute, when we talk of absolute veto, it means that if a bill is passed by the parliament and the president withholds the bill, which means that it does not decide on the bill. It says that I'll not do anything. It said that I will not accept the bill. It's not I'll not decide, I will not accept the assent to the bill. So this thing generally happens in two cases. One, when the bill is private bill, right? And the government tells him not to give assent. And second is when the bill is passed, but after the bill is passed, the government has fallen and new government has taken over. And the new government has advised the president that since this bill has been passed by the last government, therefore don't give the assent to the bill, withhold the assent to the bill. So when these two things happen, when the president withholds the assent, then the bill is dead. Then no further thing is happening on the bill is dead. This is the first power, which is the absolute veto power of the president. Second is the suspensive veto. So suspensive veto is when the president sends the bill for reconsideration. So if a bill is passed by the parliament and this option has been given to the president by the 44th amendment, which says the president can return the bill once it can be returned. Now in US case, and in India there's a little different. In US case, they have a process of qualified veto, where what happens is that the president sends the bill for reconsideration, and if the bill is passed with more higher majority, then the bill has to be accepted by the president. In India, this is not the case. If the president sends the bill for reconsideration and the bill is again passed with the same majority, then the president has no option but to give assent to the bill. Third is the provision of pocket veto. So the constitution does not mention any time period for which the president has to accept or has to give assent to the bill. In US, it is 10 days. So in that case, the veto power of India's president is more than the power of US president. In India, there is no time period. So the president, what it can do is that it can take no decision on the bill. It can say, I will not decide on the bill. Right? In that case, this is known as pocket veto. So these are the three vetoes for the ordinary bill. Now, if we talk of money bill, so in the case of money bill, the president cannot use this suspension veto. In case of money bill, suspensive veto cannot be used because money bills is already introduced in the parliament with the prior recommendation of the president. Therefore, it cannot. The option of suspensive veto is not present there, right? But president has the power to have pocket veto even in case of money bill. So he can choose to not decide on the bill and keep it in his office. That power is given to the president. Now let's talk of constitutional amendment bill. So when there is constitutional amendment bill, the 1971 Act, the 24th Amendment 1971 has clearly specified that President has no power to in case of constitutional amendment bill, which means that he has to give his assent to the constitutional amendment bill. He cannot use any of the veto power in case of constitution amendment bill, right? Second veto of the president is on the bill passed by the state assemblies. So when the bill is reserved by the governor for the president's consideration, the president has absolute veto there, which means that president can send the bill for reconsideration, right? The assembly again passes that bill. Again, the governor reserves it for president. Again, the president sends it for reconsideration. That can happen unlimited time. In that case, there is no provision which says that president can only send for reconsideration for once. He can send it again and again. He can even choose to use pocket veto there. He can choose not to decide. He can choose to hold the assent to the bill, right? Next is the ordinance making power of the president. So Article 123 clearly says the president has president or empowers the president to promulgate ordinance when the parliament is not in season and when there is some issue which has arisen, some of immediate issue for which you need to act, the president need to act, otherwise there will be a big problem. So there are 4 limitations on the ordinance making powers of the president. So first limitation is that he can only promulgate ordinance when the parliament is not in session, right? But there is one small trivia here. If only one house is in session, even then also he can pass an ordinance. So suppose only Rajya Sabha is there and Lok Sabha has been dissolved. In that case also the president can issue ordinance. It's a big trivia, understand that. Secondly, he can make an ordinance only when he is satisfied that the circumstances exist that render it necessary to take an immediate action. The third thing, and this is also one more thing, the Supreme Court has decided that there is a provision of the judicial review in ordinance also. So the Supreme Court has to be satisfied that the condition or the situation has arisen because of which ordinance has been issued. Thirdly, an ordinance can be issued only on those subjects on which Parliament can make laws. So it cannot issue ordinance, it cannot promulgate ordinance on state law. It has to be only issued in those laws which are the central laws. And yeah, so this is the condition or limitations on the power of ordinance. Next is the pardoning power of the president. So the difference between the governor, the power of governor, government, or the power of president which demands a pardon is that first of all, president can pardon a death sentence prisoner. Right? And secondly, the president can also deal with martial laws related martial law related prisoners also. So those who have been convicted by the military code, the president can pardon them also. These are the two special powers which the President of India has over the governor. There are five ways, and one more thing you need to remember, the President cannot act on its own. He has to be advised by the Union Cabinet, Union Home Minister, on whose advice he has to act. He cannot act on his own discretion, right? He has to act on the advice of Union Home Minister. Also, the court has said that the president, even though the decision of the president is not subjected to the judicial review, but the exercise, but there is also a condition, except where the president decision is arbitrary, irrational, and malified. So, except in that case, judicial review could be done. Otherwise, there is no provision of the judicial review on the president's decision. Also, one more trivia is that the petitioner for mercy has no right to for the oral hearing of the president. So, the petitioner cannot go to the president house and kind of give a oral hearing to him that please president forgive me for this reason. He cannot do that. And secondly, the president is not bound to give reasons for the order. So if president pardons anyone, he doesn't have to tell in writing that I am pardoning him because of this reason. This is also one of the trivia in this matter. So this ends the chapter, the President of India. Next chapter we'll deal with is the Vice President of India. So Vice President of India is the second, in the order of precedence, it's the second most powerful post in India. And Article 63 says that there shall be Vice President of India and its office cannot remain vacant. So first we'll deal with the election of Vice President. So Vice President is also elected by Electoral College, and this Electoral College consists of all the MPs of Lok Sabha, including the nominated ones, and all the MPs of Rajya Sabha, including the nominated ones. This is the difference between President and Vice President. In President's election, only the elected members can vote, but in case of Vice President, both elected and nominated, because nominated members are not appointed by the Vice President. That is why they are allowed to vote for the Vice President in the elections of the Vice President of India. The State Assembly has no role in the election of Vice President. Next, we'll deal with how this Vice President of India can be removed. So, Vice President of India could be removed when Rajya Sabha gives a proposal for its removal and 14 days notice is again given to Vice President, like it is the President. And after that, Rajya Sabha has to pass that resolution of impeachment of Vice President by majority of the House, which means if Rajya Sabha has 250 members, Rajya Sabha has seat for 250 members, then 126 members should agree for that. It's not 2/3 majority, it's the majority of the House, total strength of the House. And then Lok Sabha has to approve the proposal by simple majority. That present in voting on the case. Right? Simple by just doing simple majority, they can remove the vice president. One difference between president and vice president the removal is that in vice president removal, no ground has to be specified why we want to remove him. Like in case of president, they can only be removed on the basis of violation of, if he does violation of constitution. But the in constitution is silent on the grounds on which vice president can be removed. It is not there in the constitution anything which says that vice president can be removed only when he violates the constitution. It's not there in the constitution. So it's a very big trivia which could be asked in the paper. Now, what are the qualifications? Again, the same as the President of India, nothing different. Then, what are the other qualifications? That he should not be holding any office of profit. He should not be a member of any house. One thing is very important you need to remember is that even though he is a chairperson of Rajya Sabha, but Vice President of India is not the member of Rajya Sabha. He is not the member of Rajya Sabha. Deputy chairman is member of Rajya Sabha, but chairman of Rajya Sabha is not the member of Rajya Sabha. Right? Next is superintendence of the election of vice president. So it is the Election Commission of India who conducts the election of office of vice president, and the returning officer appointed to conduct the vice president election is the Secretary General of either houses of Parliament by rotation. So the Secretary General of the Parliament is the returning officer in case of election of vice president. Also, if one wants to appoint one wants to run for the election of vice president, he needs to be supported by at least 20 MP as proposers and 20 MPs as seconders. Next we'll deal with is the dispute regarding the election of vice president. So if there is any dispute with respect to if there is any petition which is filed against the election of vice president, it can only be filed in the Supreme Court. It cannot be filed in the High Court. Next is the condition of the office. Yeah. Next is how can he resign? So he can always resign by writing to the president. Next is the vacancy. So one trivia here in case of vacancy, when we talk of vacancy, there is one trivia here that the constitution is silent on what will happen if vice president dies. If suppose the vice president of India today dies, then the constitution is silent that who will act as the vice president in that case. Right? The constitution is also silent in the case when the vice president of India becomes the president of India because the death of president of India or the resignation of president of India. So if president of India dies, then generally the constitution says the VP, the vice president, will act as an interim president. Right? So the constitution is silent in that case. Who will be the interim vice president? Because now vice president is acting as a president. So who will take the role of president? Who will take the role of vice president? The constitution is silent on that. Secondly, when vice president dies, who takes the role of interim vice president? That is also where the constitution is silent. The constitution has specified one thing, that when vice president acts as a chairman of Rajya Sabha, then when if he dies or if he resigns, in that case, deputy chairman of Rajya Sabha would act as an acting chairman of the Rajya Sabha. There the constitution is not silent. It clearly says that when VP dies or VP resigns, deputy chairman of the Rajya Sabha will act as a chairman of Rajya Sabha. But it is silent in the case that who will take charge of the post of the vice president. Here they are silent. So what are the functions of Rajya Sabha? What are the functions of VP? So there are two main functions. One is he acts as an ex officio chairman of the Rajya Sabha. And secondly, he acts as a president when the vacancy occurs in the office of president. So when the president dies or president resigns or president becomes crippled, in that case, vice president can act as an interim president for the period of 6 months. So this is all about vice president. Nothing more is required to be known about him, or in no other area question could be asked in the president's exam. Let's move to the next chapter, which is Prime Minister. So Prime Minister of India is the real executive authority, or he is what we call as the head of the government. So in parliamentary democracy, you have head of government and head of state. Head of state is President of India, and head of government is the Prime Minister of India. So first we deal with the appointment of Prime Minister. These chapters, you know what, people think it's very easy. Prime Minister, we know what Prime Minister does, but there are some statements there and which questions I have been asking in UPSC, and a lot of people have not been able to solve those questions. So the Constitution does not contain any specific procedure for the selection and appointment of president. So the Constitution does not measure any specific procedure for the selection of Prime Minister of India. It only says, Article 75 only says that Prime Minister shall be appointed by the President. So Constitution is silent on the procedure through which the Prime Minister is selected or appointed. Remember, it's a very trivial statement. The President has to appoint the leader of the majority party as the Prime Minister of India. When no political party is majority, the President invites the leader of the largest coalition or the largest party, and then gives him some time to prove his majority in the House. Next is powers and functions of Prime Minister. So he has powers in relation of three things. First is in relation of the Council of Ministers. So it is the Prime Minister of India who advises the President to appoint the minister. The minister of any minister, he holds his office till the pleasure of the President. But President cannot dismiss him outrightly without the advice of the Prime Minister. He cannot just wake up next day and say, I don't like this finance minister, I will remove him. No, he cannot do that. He has to be first advised by the Prime Minister that this finance minister is not working well, so I want you to dismiss him. Right? So it is basically the Prime Minister who is main person who recommends the Prime Minister, the President of India, to appoint the ministers. Second is that he is the one who reshuffles various portfolios among the ministers. It is he who decides which minister would get which portfolio. Thirdly, it can ask any minister to resign at any time. Fourthly, he presides over the meeting of Council of Ministers. Fifthly, he guides, directs and controls and coordinates the activities of the minister. And sixthly, when he resigns, it means the end of cabinet. So there has been cases where one president, it happened in 84, right? Indira Gandhi died and there were no elections. The Congress party chose a new Prime Minister, Rajiv Gandhi. But Rajiv Gandhi did not continue. But the cabinet of Indira Gandhi, when she died, the cabinet also collapsed with her death. And when Rajiv Gandhi formed the government, he completely formed the new cabinet. Right? So once the Prime Minister is dead or resigns, the cabinet is The cabinet also ends there. New cabinet will be formed and the new PM will be there. Next is in relation to the president. So the Prime Minister is the principal channel of communication between the President of India and the Council of Ministers. He is the one which tells him what are the decisions taken by the cabinet. He is the one who updates the President on the happenings of the country. He is, and if President so requires, he can ask him to submit for the consideration of Council of Council of Ministers any matter on which decision has been taken by the minister. He also advises the President with regard to the appointment of important officials like Attorney General, CAG, Chairman and member of UPSC, Election Commissioner, Chairman and the members of Finance Commission and so on. Next is in relation to the Parliament. What are its So in relation of Parliament, it is the Prime Minister which advises the President with regard to summoning and proroguing of session in the Parliament. It recommends the dissolution of Lok Sabha to President. It announces the government policies on the floor of the House. These are things which Prime Minister do in the Parliament. Fourth is other powers of the Prime Minister. So he used to be the chairman of the Planning Commission. He used to be the chairman of the NDC. He used to be the chairman of the National Integration Council. He is the chairman of ISC, the State Council. He is the chief spokesperson of the Union government. He plays a significant role in shaping the foreign policy of the country. He is the leader of the party in power. So these are the powers given by the Constitution to him. Next, in the next chapter, we will deal with the Central Council of Ministers. So, Article 74 Constitution has 3 or 4 articles which deal with the Central Council of Ministers. So, Article 74 says that Council of Ministers will be there to aid and advise the President. See, President of India can never act on its own except there's some discretionary power here which we'll deal with when we'll deal with the chapter of the Governor. There we'll compare the discretionary power of President with the Governor. But in all other cases, the President cannot act on its own. There has to be, even if the government loses its majority in Parliament, these ministers will be acting ministers. So the President will always act on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. And secondly, the advice tendered by the Minister to the President is not or shall not be inquired in any court. The kind of advice with the President gives or the Ministers give to the President cannot be inquired in the court. Next is other provisions to Article 75 deals with the other provisions related to ministers. So the Constitution says that the total number of ministers, including the Prime Minister, in the Council of Ministers shall not exceed 15% of the total assembly seats. This number is 10% for duty, like Delhi and Pondicherry. So that is why you have 6 ministers in Delhi, because 6 plus 1, including the Chief Minister, would be 7, and that is the upper limit. So 15% of the total assembly, that can only be the minister. Next is that the minister will hold office during the pleasure of the President. The Central Council of Ministers will also be collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha. And fifthly, the minister who is not the member of any parliament for 6 months in continuation would seek to be the member of that or seek to be a minister. He can be appointed a minister, but within 6 months he has to take membership of either Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. Then next article which deals with ministers is Article 77. Article 77 says that all executive action of Government of India shall be expressed to be taken in the name of President. All executive action will be expressed as to have been taken in the name of President. Secondly, very important thing, the President shall make rules for the more convenient transaction of business of the Government of India and for allocation among ministers of the said business. Very important, UPSC has asked this 2 years back. So very carefully read this statement. The President shall make rules for the more convenient transaction of business of the Government of India and for the allocation among ministers of the said business. Next is duties of the Prime Minister. What duties of Prime Minister? So it is their duty of the Prime Minister to communicate. Next is nature of advice by ministers. So the 42nd and 44th Amendment has clearly said that the advice of the ministers is binding on President. And the nature of advice given to the Prime Minister or to the President is not or cannot be inquired in any court. In 1971, the Supreme Court has said that even after the dissolution of Lok Sabha, the Council of Ministers does not cease the office, which means that they will continue to remain ministers till the next lot of ministers are appointed or till the next elections are taken place and the new ministers have taken oath. So there cannot be no vacuum of power. In state, when this president rule, the governor could act as a chief minister, but there is no provision in the constitution or there is no case in the constitution where the president can act as a prime minister. He will continue to remain as prime minister. He will continue to be guided by the aid and advice of the ministers, whether they are interim or whether they are permanent, but he will always be guided by the advice of the ministers. Next is appointment of ministers, which we have already dealt. Next is oath and salary of ministers. So one trivia here is that you cannot take an oath as a deputy prime minister. The constitution only recognizes two oaths. One of prime minister, second of minister. Deputy prime minister is just an ordinary post. There is not been, the constitution of India does not recognize any post as deputy prime minister. It's just that it's for the power politics that deputy prime minister means that I am number two. I am clearly number two. Next is, and a very important thing is collective responsibility. So, Article 75 clearly says that the Council of Ministers is collectively responsible to Lok Sabha. And the ministers, they swim and sang together. So, which means that there is a cabinet meeting, right? In that cabinet meeting, you can tell or you give your point. But once the cabinet has decided on anything, in public, you will have to, the minister will have to support that point. If it disagrees with the point or the policy, it always has the option of resigning. But once the cabinet decides anything, the whole lot of ministers has to support it. Right? This is the concept of collective responsibility. Also, when the Lok Sabha passes no confidence motion against the Council of Ministers, all the ministers will have to resign, even if they are from Rajya Sabha also. Next is individual responsibility. So the ministers hold office during the pleasure of the president, which means that the president can remove a minister even at a time when the council of ministers enjoys the confidence of Lok Sabha. So there could be a situation where the prime minister has a disagreement with the minister and he advises the president to dismiss the minister, and in that time the whole cabinet does not have to resign because it is a fault of individual minister, and that is why he has been dismissed. So this is the case of individual responsibility. Second is in case of difference of opinion with the performance of minister, that we have already did. Third important thing you have to remember is that the ministers in India do not have any legal responsibility. In Britain, the ministers have legal responsibility, which means every decision of the president they have to countersign it. That they are taking the king cannot do anything wrong. The philosophy in Britain is. But in India's case, the minister of that respective ministry does not have to countersign on the decision of the president of India. Next is cabinet committee. So what do we mean by cabinet committee? Let's discuss the features of cabinet committee. So cabinet committee, they are actually extra constitutional body. Which means that there is no provision of cabinet committee in the constitution. It has been only introduced, it's a new concept to smoothen the functioning of the cabinet. And there are two types of cabinet committees. One is standing and second is ad hoc. So standing cabinet committees are permanent and ad hoc are created for any specific purpose, and when that purpose is fulfilled, like CCEA, Central Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs. This is an example of standing cabinet committee, which means it's permanent. But there are some committees which are for the purpose of some specific cause, and once that cause is achieved, then this committee dissolves. So they are generally, and one more thing, that it's not compulsory that cabinet committee would be headed by Prime Minister. A senior minister could also chair that cabinet committee. For example, during the UPA years, Pranab Mukherjee used to chair most of these cabinet committees. Right? Also, one more thing, that they just don't include the minister in charge. The other ministers not related to that specific topic could also be the members of that committee. So this ends this chapter, which is the Central Council of Ministers. Let's move to the state executive now. We have discussed the central executive, president, vice president, prime minister, and cabinet of the Council of Ministers. State executive is also similar. So when you read Lakshmikant, always read that side by side, because most of things are similar. So therefore, don't wait for the chapter thing. Try to finish the central executive part and the state executive part together. So we move to the head of the state executive, which is the governor. So Article 154 says that executive power of the state rests with the governor. And Article 155 says that the governor of state will be appointed by the President of India. And Article 156 says that the term of governor, the governor shall hold office till the pleasure of the president or before 5 years or till 5 years. This is sorry, not president, it's governor. Which means that unlike president, there is not a detailed procedure for election of governor. Governor is not elected; he is nominated. He is selected. That's the first difference between governor and president. Second is that while the removing president is very tough, it has been guaranteed safety of tenure. In case of governor, this is not the case. The union cabinet can remove him anytime it wants. Only thing he has to do is to advise the president to tell him to remove the governor. So government does not have any fixed security tenure. It has 5 years of tenure, but it can be removed at any time before the ending of the 5 years. Next is what are the qualifications? So Constitution has laid only two qualifications. One is that he should be citizen of India. Second is he should be 35 years. These are the only two qualifications which is given in the Constitution. And next is Article 158, which deals with what are the conditions of the governor's office. So everything is same, just like the president shall not hold any office of profit, shall not be member of either house of parliament. One trivial thing here is that when the same person is appointed as a governor of two or more states, the emoluments and the allowances payable to the governor shall be allocated among the states in such proportion as president may by order determine. So it is the president which will determine by order how much the allowances and the kind of the expenditure which is being done on governor, how much the two states share. So if one state governor becomes the governor of both Haryana and Punjab, then the president order will decide that how much Haryana government will pay and how much Punjab government will pay. Next we deal with is the executive power of the governor. So when we talk of executive power of governor, it is almost same as that of president. So the executive power of state is vested in governor. The executive power of state extends to all matters with respect to which state legislatures make law. All executive is expressed to be taken in the name of governor. He appoints the chief minister, and also the other ministers on the advice of chief minister. He has the power to nominate one member from Anglo-Indian community if he is of the opinion that the community needs representation in the assembly or if the community needs representation in the assembly. He appoints advocate general, chairman and member of state public service commission. He has the power to nominate 1/12 of the members to the legislative council of the state. Next we move is to legislative power of governor. So he is a part of the legislature just like president is a part of parliament. This question was asked 6 years back. That is, parliament is president the part of parliament? Yes, both president and governor are part of parliament. Then it is he has the right to address the legislature and send message to it. From time to time, he has the power to summon, prorogue, and dissolve the legislative assembly. He has the power to cause them to be laid before the legislature, the annual budget. Without his recommendation, no demand for grant can be made by the legislature. He also will reserve bill for the president, which are passed by the legislature. So, in regard to Article 200 and Article 201, he has very important power. So, what is that power? We'll discuss that. So, Article 200 discuss with the governor's assent to bill. So, Article 200 says that when a bill is passed by the president or when the bill is passed by the state assembly, the governor has four options. First option is that he gives his assent. Second option is he withheld his assent. If third is if it's an ordinary bill, he can send it for reconsideration. Fourth is he can reserve the bill for the president. This is the power which is extra to that of the President of India. He can reserve the bill for President. Next is Article 201, so which deals with the bills which are reserved for the consideration of the President. So this we have already discussed, that when the governor reserves the bill for the president has absolute veto in that. He can again send in the bill time to time to the assembly, and that is absolute. He can do it. The president can do it any number of times. Next is the difference between ordinance making power of governor and the president. So largely the power is same, but there are following differences between the ordinance making power of governor and the president. So if an ordinance has a content which in the form of bill would require prior presidential permission before hand for introduction, then the ordinance cannot be passed without the prior consent of the president. Now let's understand, this is very simple. That suppose the president or suppose the governor is promulgating ordinance on the bill. If that ordinance would have been the bill, it would have required the prior recommendation of the president. Then even if in case of ordinance, the governor will have to first send that ordinance to the president for prior approval, and without prior approval, the governor cannot promulgate that ordinance. First case is that. Second case is that if the ordinance has contents which in the form of bill would have been compulsory reserved for the president. right? Or which is compulsory reserved for the presidential assent after the passage. Then also you need the prior permission of the president for promulgating ordinance. Third case is that if the ordinance has a content that in the form of bill would have inclined the governor to reserve it for the president. In that case also, the governor will have to take prior permission of the president for introducing or for promulgating the ordinance. So it clearly says that the ordinance making power of governor is limited in comparison to that of president. Next is the pardoning power of governor. That we have already discussed that there is minor difference here that the governor can only pardon or respite or rebuke the sentences of any convict in case of state laws. In only those offences which are part of state laws, the governor can act, while president can act in case of union laws. Right? Secondly, the governor cannot pardon a death penalty. This is second constraint on governor, that he cannot pardon he can pardon a normal convict if somebody is in life imprisonment, then he can pardon. But if a victim or if a convict is having a death penalty, then he cannot pardon it. While the President of India can pardon even a death penalty victim. Right? Second is that in case of those convicts who have been sentenced by the military court, the governor has no role there. So these are the trivial differences between the pardon power of the president and the governor. Let's deal with the comparison between discretionary power of the governor and the president. So, even though the president is appointed with a tedious process, the state assemblies are involved, the parliament are involved, and the governor is just nominated. But even after that, the constitution gives more discretionary power to the governor than that to the president, and this is surprising. So there are some discretionary powers which are given to both the governor and the president. These discretionary powers are suspensive veto. Both the governor and the president can use his discretion in that. Next is pocket veto. Even in case of pocket veto, the president and the governor both have the power to use pocket veto. Third is under Article 78, the President enjoys the right to seek information from the Prime Minister regarding the administration of the affairs of the Union. The Governor can do the same with the Chief Minister. Fourth is the President has the right to warn or encourage the Council of Ministers in the exercise of its power. Again, the Governor also has the same power. Next is under Article 85. If the Council of Ministers do not properly advise the President in summoning the session of the Parliament in such a way that not more than 6 months lapse between the two sessions, then the President can summon the session of the Parliament on its own, which means that generally it is the Council of Ministers will advise the President when a session could be summoned. But if 6 months pass and there has been no advice of the Council of Ministers, then President can, on its own discretion, can announce that the Parliament session will begin. The Governor also has the same power. Sixth is when no political party or coalition enjoys the majority in Lok Sabha, the President has discretion in inviting the leader of the party or coalition of parties who in his opinion is able to form the stable government. Same, the governor can also do the same in the states. Seventh is that if the president can dissolve the Lok Sabha only on the advice of Council of Ministers, but the advice is binding to the president only when that government is in majority in Lok Sabha. right? Same power the governor has in state. The caretaker government does not enjoy majority or in Lok Sabha, and it is not expected to take major decisions, but only to make day-to-day administrative decisions. Now it is for the president to decide which are the major decisions and which are the day-to-day administrative decisions. Again, the governor has the same role to play here. Now, these all are discretionary powers of the president, and the governor also enjoys the same power. But in addition to these discretionary power which the president has, the governor also enjoys some additional powers which are not given to the president of India. So these include Article 163 2, Provision 2. So this provision says that the power to decide whether an issue is discretionary or not is itself a discretion of the governor. So it is the governor which will decide that this matter is discretionary for the government or for the governor, or he has to act in aid and advice of the ministers. It is governor himself who will decide that whether this matter is discretionary or he has to act in aid and advice of the governor. Second is under Article 166(3). The governor has discretion in making rules for the more convenient transaction of state government in areas of its discretion. So this is also the discretionary power of the governor, that he has discretion in making rules for the more convenient transaction of state government. Next is Article 356. So under 356, the governor can invite the president to take over the state. Next is Article 200. So Article 200 also says that the governor can reserve any bill for the consideration of the president. Also, the governor acts in discretion while sending fortnightly report to the president or the center. Then there are some additional powers given to governor in some of the states. Like under Article 371, the governor has been given some additional powers in some of the states. Like in Arunachal Pradesh and Nagaland, the governor has been given power of law and order, of administering law and order. In Sikkim, the governor has been given power for peace and social economic development. In Maharashtra, he has been given power for the development of Vidarbha and Marathwada region. So he has been given some additional powers which the president is not given. And one more important thing is that governor can become chief minister of the state, but the president cannot become the chief minister of, or the president cannot become the prime minister of country. There is no provision for that. They will always be interim government, right? So this ends the chapter on the governor. Next we will move to is chief minister. So there is not much difference between the power of chief minister and that of prime minister. Just like prime minister is the head of the government at the center, chief minister is the head of the government at state, right? Also, chief minister, the constitution does not contain any specific procedure for the selection or the appointment of chief minister. It only says, the Article 164 says that chief minister shall be appointed by the governor. Also, according to the convention, the governor appoints or it has to appoint the leader of majority party in the state as the chief minister of that state. But in case when there is no majority, it is generally the leader of the single largest party or the leader of the single largest coalition who will be invited to form the government, and based on that, and he will be given some time to prove his majority. Next is the chief minister of the state could be member of either upper house or the lower house, and his oath and the term or the salary, it is similar to that of prime minister. He is in the powers and function of chief ministers in relation to council of ministers is also same that of prime minister of India. There is no difference between them. Next is in relation to state government also the power is same. In terms of other powers and functions, the basic difference is that he is the member of interstate council. The prime minister is the chairman of interstate council, but the chief minister is the member of interstate council. He is member of NDC. He is the chairman of the state planning board. This is here is different from the prime minister. Next is state council of ministers. So when we talk of state council of ministers, it is also the power is same as we have in the central council of ministers. So, but only thing difference here is that the council of ministers is there to aid the governor, but governor, as we have discussed earlier, if a question arises whether the matter falls within governor's discretion or not, the decision of the governor shall be final. This is the extra power which is given to governor, which is not there with the president of India. And if the government decides that this matter is, if the governor decides that this matter is of my discretion and I don't require aid and advice, then that matter ends there. It cannot be, the governor's discretion cannot be questioned in any court of law. Next is all other provisions are same. There is one other provision, different provision, which is not there in the central council of ministers, is that in state of Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, MP and Orissa, there shall be a minister who will be in charge of tribal affairs. Right? This provision is there in the state. The next, other than that, everything is similar. The cabinet committee is similar. Everything else is similar. I don't need to waste my time in that case. Right? So in the next lecture, we will be discussing about state assemblies and the parliament in this, because we will be going choice by choice. We will be discussing the central provision, then we will go to the state provision. That will save your time also, and that will make the things easier for you. So next lecture we will be dealing with parliament and the state legislature. Thank you.